Today on Detroit Muscle, learn how you can take a tuckered out interior and for $1,000 transform the whole thing into a better looking, more comfortable, and better smelling cockpit. Plus, we take a test drive with the all-new 2016 Camaro.
Hey, glad to see you back with us. Now we're getting dangerously close with getting our Mopar back on the road from its 20+ year vacation. But today, we're gonna focus mainly on our budget Iroc build. Now it still has a good bit of work left to be done on it before it's what we would consider ready for public consumption. Last time around, we baseline dynoed that strung out 305 that she had under the hood and made a monstrous 152 horsepower. After we got her back into the shop, it was time to swap out that anemic small block for a slightly used 350 bottom end. And then we tossed some Trick Flow Go Fast goodies at it, along with a little bitty nitrous kit. Once all that was done, we doubled the power output of that old F-body.
We started with 10 grand, and after the purchase of the car and those power upgrades, we still got $3,500 left to spend. Our still to do stuff includes the suspension, the paint, and of course, the interior. Now the inside of this old girl has seen better days, but you'd be surprised what you can accomplish with a little bit of money and some time to spend on making it better. To start with, the dash is cracked and pretty rough. The carpet makes me think I need to get an update on some vaccines. The headliner's looking pretty gnarly. And of course the seats, well, they need some help too.
So if we're gonna be freshening this thing up on the inside, we've gotta get this old junk out of the way. The first thing we're gonna start with is these old junky seats. Should be wearing gloves.
Ah, Velcro.
Velcro. You know, Velcro was quite an invention. Hey, that's where I left my dog food. That's enough.
Be sure to take care when you're removing these plastic panels and components. In one of these third gens, those pieces are going to be at least 24 or so years old, so it doesn't take much to mess them up.
Gross. Somehow I lost a bet, I believe.
Ooh. All yours.
Thank you, sir. We've got majority of the interior removed out of our Iroc, and we're going to go ahead and snatch out this headliner, because otherwise that junk's going to keep falling and we'll have to clean this car twice. Didn't take long at all. No need to leave all this nasty stuff under here before we put our new carpet down. So you'll want to make sure that you have a nice clean floor before you move on.
All right, so we've got the interior of our Iroc all disassembled, and we're going to start working on these trim panels. Now, these things have seen better days. They've been re-dyed at some point in their lives, so we need to take extra care in making sure we get these things prepped properly so that when we dye them, they turn out the best they can. Make them look new again. A scuff pad and some soapy water is an effective way to remove the old grimy goo from our panels. It takes a little bit of scrubbing, but this old dye doesn't seem to be hanging on too tightly. You can see here just how much of that stuff we're removing. You'll still probably want to do this even if your panels haven't already been dyed before, since there will be a few decades of nastiness built up on them. So So we have our panel all scuffed up now, and as you can see, the original surface is showing through. Now we're gonna take some Scott shop towels and some of this pre-cleaner, and we're gonna get any remaining residue off so that our dye will stick. All right, we got all our panels prepped and we're here in the booth. We're getting ready to spray this Dupli-Color vinyl and fabric coating. Now you have to use good ventilation with this, but since we have a booth, we're good to go.
To use this panel dye, you want to keep the can around 6 to 10 inches from the surface. And just like painting anything else, use steady, even strokes. You can help prevent runs by laying down several light coats once the previous one becomes tacky.
After the break, our low-buck interior transformation continues with new goodies going back in the Iroc. And later, learn all about the brand new Camaro platform.
Now we're making some pretty good headway on the interior on our Iroc, and with our car having the T-tops in it, we all know that they're kind of prone to leaking. And from the mildew that's on this seat, there's a pretty good chance that this car's had some moisture on the inside of it. So we picked up some cleaner from AutoZone, and we're hoping we can toss in a little bit of elbow grease, and these seats will clean up pretty nice. Ugh. Now that's pretty much what's on that seat. Bet we're gonna go through a few of those paper towels. Cleaning off stuff like this isn't just going to improve the smell and look of the car, but there are actually health reasons to get rid of mildew. It's not good for you to be around all that stuff very much, and that's probably the biggest reason to get rid of it. After spending some quality time with a roll of paper towels and some cleaner, our seats look a whole lot better. Now it's time to start throwing some new pieces in our Iroc.
Now, first of those new pieces we're going to install is this carpet that we got from year one. It's pre-molded and it's a direct fit for our Iroc, but we need to get it in, trim a little bit around the edges to make it fit just right. This cutout right here, this is where the seat mount is, so it's got to go forward about 6 inches. We'll make a relief cut right where the shifter and the e-brake lever come through the carpet so that we can slide it farther forward. This seatbelt pedestal goes over the carpet, so we'll make a notch for that, and find where we need to make the holes for our seat's mounting bolts as well. Thanks to a good fit, we won't need to trim any off of the edges, and our rear carpet just sits in place, nice and tidy.
All right guys, we got the carpet installed and now we're moving to the headliner. The reason we're doing that is this thing's got a lot of trim pieces that go on over the headliner to keep it in place. And we don't want to risk kind of flexing them and busting something. For the most part, this thing is held in by the trim pieces, so we'll get them screwed in place.
I guess we need a visor.
A few relief cuts will show us the mounting holes for the visors, which we've already replaced with some new ones from year one.
Now we can start placing the other panels back in the car. Most of them are pretty easy. The biggest challenge is finding the holes for the trim screws to go in. A couple of them have some tricky bits, like this rear panel. Once it's lined up to our big bad 6x9, it catches around this pedestal. Our old speaker covers were too far gone, so we also picked up a couple of those from year one.
Up next, it's time for a road trip as we head to Detroit and GM headquarters.
Hey guys, you might notice we're doing something a little bit different. We're here in Dunkirk, Ohio, fixing to grab us a bite to eat.
And you may also notice this fancy new Camaro here. Well, as you can imagine, there's a story behind that.
To start with, we hopped on a plane from Nashville, Tennessee to Detroit, home of the Lions, Rock City, and of course, the Motor City. It's an all-American town that's got a rich history of automotive manufacturing and commerce. Our stop, GM headquarters.
In the 60s, Ford had a game changer on their hands with the new pony platform, the Mustang. GM struck back in '67 with what would become one of their most iconic nameplates, the Camaro. After 5 generations, Camaro is still one of the top sellers in the industry with around 5 million made. And now there's a 6th iteration of this classic muscle machine.
GM hosted an automotive media event to launch the Gen 6 Camaro, giving us a chance to learn more about the car.
Well, we started working on the 6th generation a few years ago now, and the one thing we all said as a team is this thing has to resonate with our customer.
In general, it's smaller and lighter than where we came from with the Gen 5 car. And some of the technologies are brand new that we haven't seen yet in Camaro, and that's a huge way to move the car forward.
Let's take a look at some numbers. In 2015, the Camaro SS made 426 horsepower and 420 foot-pounds of torque. In 2016, those numbers have rocketed up to 455 and 460 respectively. Compare that with the 2016 Mustang GT, which makes 435 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. Both cars weigh in right at 3,700 pounds, so with the power game in Chevy's court, they have the advantage.
And this is the overall most powerful line of Camaros that Chevy has ever produced. So if you live and breathe bow tie, well, this is all great news for you.
Now to get out of Detroit and back to Nashville. And we're taking one of the new cars to test it out along the way.
Hammer down, hero. We figured we'd take the scenic route and avoid the interstates for the most part. Good choice. What do you think about the new styling cues of this thing?
Well, to be honest, when I saw the photos first, before we saw the car in person, I thought, wow, that just looks like a 5th gen Camaro. And I was wrong. We're southbound through Ohio, planning on stopping in Cincinnati on our way to Nashville. So the name of the show is Detroit Muscle, so obviously we wanted to get our hands on an SS, but by the luck of the draw, we ended up with a V6. Now, to be quite honest, we were pretty skeptical about this thing, but after having a chance to be behind the wheel for a few hours, the thing actually packs a punch.
But we can't say that we aren't disappointed. This thing looks like an apex predator, but, well, it sounds like an angry beehive. It does push 335 horsepower, but it's got 176 fewer pound-feet of torque than the V8 at 284.
It's a lot like asking the cheerleader to the prom, but winding up dancing with the hot English teacher instead. It's still fun, but it wasn't what you were after. I'd like to say it was an incredible experience, but when you're wishing for a V8 the whole time, it kind of kills the vibe.
This might look like a regular old parking lot and office building complex, but there's a lot of history behind this location.
Legions of craftsmen have joined to supply transportation for a nation of individuals.
Norwood, Ohio was the location of one of GM's largest assembly plants, beginning in 1923. It's where Camaros were first birthed, and over the years, a lot of them were produced here as well.
Well, this is where the old plant used to stand, but we all know that time keeps marching on, and back in 1987, well, that's when the last Camaro rode off the assembly line here.
That's right, and the plant was built in 1923, and after 64 years of production, it was deemed obsolete. Now, all of those buildings where all those Camaros and other Chevys were produced, they were leveled. And in their place, industrial park.
The city of Norwood had relied on the plant for almost 35% of its residential income, and when it closed, they faced economic catastrophe. Do us a favor, if you're in the market for a new car, start out by looking at American made.
We're in the home stretch of our road trip now, and we're quickly approaching Nashville, Tennessee. Of course, we still want to stick to the back roads when we can. One thing you can say for this car, it drives a lot more comfortably, and you can see out of it a lot better than the Gen 5s.
And hey, before you know it, we've arrived at the drop-off point. It was a whole lot of fun, but now we've got to give them back their car. Well, we made it back in one piece, and I tell you, it was kind of a short trip, but it was a whole lot of fun. It's time for us to get back to the shop. We've got a lot of stuff to get working on, so hey, we'll see you guys later.
Still ahead, we complete the interior transformation on our low-buck Iroc.
Hey guys, while you were gone, we went ahead and got the rear seats installed. Next, we're going to tackle this console, and then we've got something special to show you.
If you remember back, our original Iroc seats were in pretty bad shape, so we decided to go to Summit Racing and get a set of their bolstered seats. Now, these things run about $160, and they have a lot of benefits. One of them is they already have the holes cut in them, just in case you're wanting to run a set of harnesses. They offer them in a few different colors, so this makes it a no-brainer, especially whenever you figure in trying to find an original set of seats that aren't broken and then having them reupholstered. Now, to mount them up, MARC fabbed up some simple brackets, so now all we have to do is bolt them in the hole. You know, one of the most common complaints that we have is that it seems like everything we put together goes perfectly smooth. Well, that's not always the case. As you see here, so stop emailing us about it.
Oh boy, well, we gotta get that e-brake through there.
Oh yeah. First day. Yeah, I don't know, big gap.
Now, let's see if we can slide it down that way. Man, how do you do that?
Wait, is that all the way? Try it now.
Nope. We got it. Is it close?
Sounds like it.
There it goes. I'm sure that's how it's supposed to go. It fits. Kinda. Let's not forget about that cracked up nasty dash in our old Camaro. It needs some help pretty badly as well. All right, so the final touch we're gonna give the interior of our Iroc is this dash pad we got from year one. Now, all that other work we did on the interior would be kind of a waste once people laid their eyes on that cracked dash. Just a few screws to put it in, so we're gonna go ahead and get that swapped out. Boy, look at that difference. Woo! Well, that does it for the interior of our Iroc. Now, we spent about $1,000 of our budget, but it was money well spent because it looks a whole lot better than it did.
Well, I'll tell you one thing's for sure, and it sure enough smells a whole lot better. Now, we've still got a little bit more money left in our budget, so we're gonna do some stuff to the suspension, but that's gonna have to wait till next time. So y'all come back now.